Casing the Cover is a bi-monthly podcast series hosted by Mary and Jenn. That's me. In our day-to-day experiences, Mary and I happen across numerous crappy covers, atrocious authors, and sad, sad titles. We spend a healthy amount of time decoding how cover designs can be humorously contrary to the story within, or used to lure readers based on demographic or current trends. Should you judge a book by the cover? Join Mary and Jenn on the case to find out.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Casing the Cover, the podcast where tempers, statures, and stories are all short. I am Mary, and with me as always is my co-host Jenn.
Hello!
And today we have a very special guest, friend of the pod and host of the podcast, AE Reads Skiffily. It's our friend AE. Hello, AE.
Hello, I'm here.
Welcome.
I'm not that short, but
No,
I
we
can
are.
stand over you two.
Yeah. We're
Yes.
very short.
And somehow we are seated in such a way that you are higher than us. I'm not
Look,
sure how we managed that.
You've given me a throne.
Yes. Well, no, we gave you an empire.
You're the guest.
Because it's an ottoman.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God. Oh, we're already starting.
Is that like if I had a superpower of my choice, it would be the Soviet Union?
I don't get it.
You know, superpower, like
Oh,
like a
yes.
superhero
Oh, I
thing.
get it.
And then
Mine is funnier. 'Cause
Somebody-
he's sitting
yeah.
on an ottoman, and it's funny.
you guys didn't
This
laugh
is
at my
just
joke,
easier
but
to
your listeners
understand.
will.
This is not going well. But maybe it will go better because we are together for a compilation, because we're talking about a compilation of
Yes.
stories.
That's true.
So we're doing something a little different. Our previous guests that we've had on the pod have been author interviews, but we actually made AE do the work. So he, first talk a little bit about what you do on your podcast, because it ties in.
Okay, so in my podcast, I scrounge around and search for science fiction stories, and then I read them on the podcast, and I add immersive sound effects and music. I wrangle my friends to read the different parts, so you have different voices for different characters, and then it's sort of like a audio drama kind of thing.
It's very fun. I enjoy it quite a lot. So we thought, well, we'll do sci-fi short stories, and we'll make AE read some and review them with us.
Yeah.
And then he made me read them too.
And I didn't have to.
Jen didn't read them.
I don't know how I dodged this bullet.
That's okay.
Because it was a pretty big bullet, apparently.
You have it on your phone.
I do.
I don't have it on mine.
All
What
right.
is the title of this book?
Ready?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
I got it. Alien Virus Love Disaster Stories by Abbey Mei Otis.
Yes, and it's a short story collection of science fiction short stories.
So is it all the same author?
Yeah, it's all the same author. Yeah, it's a
Ah.
collection if it's all the same author, and an anthology if it's different authors.
I
Yes,
never even thought of that.
I did know that, but like it's so rare that I see a collection of short stories. I see way more often that anthology
Mhm.
where like you ask a bunch of people, and I'm in a bunch too, or like you kind of go, oh okay, we're all writing about this theme,
Yeah.
and everybody kind of writes about the same basic theme, and then
Or they find something in their trunk or
Yeah,
their
yeah,
drawer
that-
that fits the theme.
that doesn't happen at all.
Is that bad? I mean, hey, we have this theme. We're doing something with robot zombies.
And you're
Oh,
like-
that's perfect.
Blow the dust off.
Yeah. I wrote this in the 90s.
Is that how you get in an anthology, Jen?
That might be how Jen gets into
You-
anthologies.
You make it seem more contemporary by just scrubbing out one politician's name and putting in the new politician's name.
I don't use politician names.
Oh,
See,
there's a
that's
reference
smart.
here to the iPhone 3, iPhone
11.
7.
Yeah, I don't really do a lot of that.
You don't have iPhones in your pirate stories?
I do not have iPhones. Period.
Or in your gothic romance?
It's not a romance. It's a horror story.
Gothic horror story.
My current work in progress is a gothic horror story.
Well, we're not talking about you, Jen.
I know, but it was really easy to just slip in there.
So, Alien Virus Love Disasters. We want to talk about the cover. Who wants to start?
All right, so I don't have the cover in front of me.
Oh, here. I have it.
I wanna-
It's creepy. I don't like it.
All right, so I looked at the cover because they're like, we should read this one. I'm like looking at the cover. There is a giant cat, and there is a woman in the cat's mouth, and then they're standing over some tiny little town, and then there's stars in the sky, and it's
Yeah.
black and white.
It looks like a sketch almost. Like it looks like black paper with like a white sketch art over it.
Yeah.
Or like when you used to do those scratch out things, you get the black paper and you scratch out so that it comes out.
Inverted. Yeah.
The audiobook cover, because I was listening to audiobooks, because I don't read books. It has a kind of a similar like look to it, but it's more cartoon style.
That's the one you showed me.
Yeah. And
okay. There's an actual alien on it.
There's an alien on it, and there's like kind of almost an anime style like woman's face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mouth with planets in it.
Okay.
Both covers remind me of the Twilight Zone.
There's
a lot.
There's a line person. You know, you do the line drawings.
The kind of line, like like the old school Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
The opening where it's the black and everything. It's black and white, and everything kind of sways through the darkness of the universe. Totally looks like that to me.
Is that what these stories are like? Are they very Twilight Zone-y?
They're not very Twilight Zone-y, but I mean, if somebody said, if you like the Twilight Zone, you might like these stories.
It's kind of like a throwback sort of to that kind of style of storytelling almost.
When were they written?
I think fairly modern. I don't know the date.
Yeah, these were written this millennium.
2018? 2018.
Yeah, that's
2 years old.
Yeah, that's when the collection was published, but then some of the stories appeared elsewhere in years prior.
But so I'd say in the last 10 years, the latest.
Yeah.
So not the 60s.
And yet, it's very 60s.
It's not written in a 60s way, but if we're thinking about the Twilight Zone and kind of some of the situations.
Yeah, kind of like the premises of some of those where it's like, the weird things that happen or the alien race that's just among us now, like that kind of premise is very similar, I think. That's where it kind of hit in my brain, because I grew up watching those.
And these stories don't necessarily have the same sort of like moral lesson that the Twilight Zone does.
I think the only one that felt like it did was Sweetheart.
Okay, yeah.
Which kind of did, which was the only one I liked.
But aren't they romantic?
No. So let's read the titles of these because they're fun titles. So there are, I think, like a dozen or so. Yeah. The first one is Alien Virus Love Disasters, the first short story. Then Moon Kids, which kind of has a morality to it a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
If You Could Be God of Anything. Teacher, which is the most bogus thing I've ever read in my entire life. Blood, Sex Dungeons for Sad People. Not an Alien Story. Sweetheart. I'm Sorry Your Baby Got Eaten by a Cougar. Rich People. If You Lived Here, You'd Be Evicted by Now. Ultimate Housekeeping Mega Thrill 4. And 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Moon Creeps Up, Crest Begins to Sink. Those are the titles.
That's the whole title. Wait, that
last one's all one title.
1 a.m., 2 a.m., Moon Creeps Up, Crest Begins to... What? That's the weirdest title.
Well, wait a minute. I don't think I read that last one.
Oh, maybe it's only in
the last one. Yeah, the last one I
didn't finish it.
I read the Ultimate Housekeeping Mega Thrill 4. That was the last one that I
So I think the 1 a.m., 2 a.m. actually is a continuation of Ultimate Housekeeping Mega Thrill 4.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So that one, I wasn't paying attention to half of these because I didn't like them. But the Ultimate Housekeeping Mega Thrill 4, she comes home to her kids. And I think the 1 a.m., 2 a.m. is about the kids.
Oh, wait a minute.
So was it like all one in the book? Like physical? Because you read the physical book, right?
Yeah. So that one is the same like setting as If You Could Be God of Anything.
Oh, okay. So it's a continuation of one of the other.
They're not really. It's almost like a different perspective because I only noticed because I took notes and I'm like, oh, these characters have the same names.
Hey, he took notes. He's so professional. He makes us look like crap.
You take those too, right?
Sometimes we take notes.
Yeah.
No,
yeah. Jen, you didn't you mention you have a spreadsheet of everything you read, right?
I do have a spreadsheet of everything I've read and how long it took me to read them. And if I read them via audiobook, ebook, or physical book.
Oh, God. Okay, so I just look like an unprofessional. That's okay.
I have
but you know how to run this stuff.
I have a doc that I write the title of it, when I read it, and then like my notes on it. That's one of it.
See, yeah, I don't do that.
But it's not a spreadsheet. It's I sometimes I consider like maybe I should do a spreadsheet because then it's searchable.
Yes.
Oh, that's smart.
And sortable.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Data. The data. I love the data.
So Jen, as the one who didn't read this, which one of these titles has you the most curious? And maybe we'll try to explain it to you.
Okay, the most curious or the most disturbed? Because most disturbed is Sex Dungeons for Sad People.
That one wasn't even that weird compared to some of the others.
That wasn't science fiction. Some of these are kind of a mix of science fiction and fantasy. Some of them are fantastical.
Yeah.
Some of them are science fiction.
Yeah.
This one, I was there's that one is, there's this, the point of view character. She's a sex worker in a dungeon where she gets into this, I think it's a suit, and then people abuse her in it.
And I think that's the sci-fi element, is the suit, right? Because I don't think it's a real thing that exists. It's this vinyl suit that she wears that amplifies the feelings from outside of it.
Or it dulls them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be safe, and it's also supposed to sort of be depersonalized, but it's like a kind of BDSM fetish thing.
Yeah.
So it's a extrasensory gimp suit? What is happening?
Well, the idea is she's got a breathing tube, and then she's hung in the air, and then they abuse her, but she's safe from actual damage.
Yeah. So I think the suit itself is the sci-fi element. So all of them either have a sci-fi or fantastical element, and they all have some sort of sexual element. That's the one thing all these stories kind of have in common.
Oh.
Which is why it's called Alien Love Virus, whatever. Because they all have the sexual element in them at some point.
Well, I think the name of the collection is named after
the first story.
Yeah.
But they also have kind of the ongoing themes.
I hesitate to overthink that, because sometimes they do that. Well, this is the collection, but the collection is named after the story that has the most interesting title, or that story that's the most well-known.
It's not even the most interesting title. It's the most tame title. Without being a one word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they might have picked a title. I say they, could have been her, right?
Mm-hmm. Or publisher.
Yeah. Somebody, some mysterious person, picked the title that they thought was going to get the most eyeballs.
Yeah,
looking.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing with the cover, right? Let's attract some eyeballs here.
Which, the cover, too, I don't think any of the short stories directly relate to either of the covers. And that's also kind of why I feel it kind of evokes that Twilight Zone. It's because, this is an anthology, but they're all kind of this style of fiction.
Well, that was my thought at first. But then I found the story that had the giant cat eating somebody.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
I was waiting for the cat, and then the cat came.
But it's a cougar.
It is a cougar.
The cat on the cover is a tiger. He has stripes. It's Tiger King.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And see, I can't follow that reference either because I did not watch that. The one though you asked, which one got me the most curious, is just teacher! Exclamation point.
And see that
Mary's face.
The Sex Dungeon story, the character is a teacher.
Yes.
And so she's teaching in this terrible environment when the students just are struggling and they don't have the resources they need, and then one of them dies.
Yeah.
And so she takes the mother of that student from the funeral, just walks over the pews, takes the mother, takes her to work, and let's do this.
Yeah, takes
together.
her to the Sex Dungeon.
Yeah. So
these stories are kind of all like that.
yeah, and so then in teacher, it's also, I have a feeling
the same
maybe
teacher?
Abbey Mei Otis is a teacher at a school that is
maybe.
poorly funded.
Yeah, so teacher is a 12-minute story in which it starts off and she's just a regular teacher and she's getting yelled at because the students aren't excelling. And then slowly, a zombie outbreak happens, and they all jump into some kid's cavity to escape.
Yeah, that wasn't very science fiction. It was a dream.
It was weird, surrealist kind of. I hated it.
But it had a really great line. It's hard to be convinced of the necessity of verb tenses when our situation exhibits so little possibility for change.
Okay, I will say.
That's from the student.
I will also say for teacher, it's the one laugh I had in the whole book, which is they have a college student in the class. He's a student teacher, and he has to preface everything he says by saying, as a college student, and that made me laugh. And I don't know why. It's the kid's beating him up. He's as a college student, this hurts. That made me laugh.
Yeah, no, I think that
Oh my god.
both of those stories, and a lot of these stories actually in this collection, they're there's kind of like this depressing note about it. So there's humor in it, but there's humor in this sort of absurdity that this person is in this situation where they have to teach these students in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And that's this kind of like running theme throughout all of these. It's like really depressing. I feel like this author might be better in an anthology where there's sort of like different emotional notes. Mm-hmm. Right, because it seems like this is like her style is like, let's get really depressing.
Yeah.
Let's get really
Well, a lot of them seem to kind of deal with poverty too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you have the, like you were saying, with the schools that seem to like be like these underfunded schools. But then the first story is the alien virus love disaster. This family that lives behind like a factory basically, and they all get a disease from the factory. And then in the Moon Kids, they're kids who used to live on the moon and they get booted from the moon because they're not smart enough. And so, like, they all work these, like, menial labor jobs in a society where no one has a job anymore, but they have no other way of life because they get kicked out of the moon.
And that one has this extra layer because the point of view character, you find out that she deliberately failed the test because she wanted to be an artist, and then she finds out on Earth, everybody's an artist.
Right. Because the Earth has gotten to the point where everyone just exists for pleasure.
Yeah.
Unless you're a moon kid, and then you have to get a job.
The moon does all the technical work.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Actually, Moon Kids is my favorite one of this collection.
Really?
Yeah.
It was I didn't mind Moon Kids. It wasn't my least favorite. That's certainly.
But it's the most science fictional as well.
Yeah, because they're these off-world.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and then like the idea of like their bodies being changed by the different gravities.
Yeah.
That's pretty accurate.
So I'm looking up this author to see what other things that she has written, and I'm not finding her.
I think she mostly writes short stories, because a few things I saw about her were like, oh, this short story is in this collection, and like that seems to be kind of what her most promotion is of her short story work.
Oh, here we go. She's a writer, teaching artist, storyteller, and fire starter. Raised in the woods of North Carolina.
She sounds like you.
That was not polite. But you're not wrong.
Fire starter, raised in the woods.
I don't start fires, and I was raised in a swamp.
It's hard to start fires in the swamp.
It is. It's very difficult. I'm not getting myself in trouble right now.
So, on the whole, did you like this collection?
So I think my take is that sort of like a lot of these stories had that sort of it's kind of difficult to read them back to back sort of. Some of them I like more than others. Some of them I had like the kind of the reaction like with the teacher story where it's like, okay, this is difficult, and then suddenly they're like going in somebody's mouth, right? Like that's kind of weird.
Oh, there's a mouth on that one cover.
Yeah, there's a mouth with the worlds in it.
World inside it.
Yeah, that feels like a reference to that.
And there was one story. Let me find it.
That's so funny.
So there was a story. Oh, it was the one that the cover shows, right?
The cougar one.
I'm sorry your daughter got eaten by a cougar. So it starts out where it's kind of like there's this town and there's this tragedy where this girl,
little girl
got eaten right by a cougar, right? But then there's these other elements that she keeps adding to it, right? So her husband, it turns out, is away in space.
Yeah.
Doing some space things. And then he like crashes. But while he's away, she's cheating on him with a ghost of a Confederate soldier.
Or is he a zombie?
Oh yeah, it was and undead.
She says he's neither, but he's dead. He's specifically dead.
Yeah.
We don't know in what capacity. Maybe he's a vampire.
So
we don't know in what capacity he's dead.
there's this fantasy, there's this tragedy, there's this science fiction. And so it's like she's adding all of these elements in, and it's too much for a short story, and it's kind of like she's putting everything in the kitchen sink in.
The parents of the 2-year-old also turn to like plant people or something?
Something else happens with the...
They turn into like were plants or something. Like she's checking in on them. And like the first impression I got listening to this story, it almost seemed like it was set like in an older era, because it was like they lived in a small town and a kid got eaten by a cougar and they were hanging the clothes out in the line to dry and she goes to the general store. It like felt like...
Frontierland.
Right, but then, she like goes to check on this old couple, and like every time she goes to check on them, they become more and more feral, and there's like a plant taking over their house.
Here's what my notes say. At some point, the Drakes, this is the parents,
the family,
turn into sexy zombies, I think. Yeah, I kind of like as the story went on, I felt like I was reading somebody's dream.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Is that when, like, her, like, mental de-evolution dealing with the death of her daughter?
Well, it's not her daughter.
It was yeah. It was
It's
some
like the neighbor's
person.
kid.
Is it her coping with it?
I don't think so. She just notices it's happening.
If you read the story as sort of a non-narrative, like we're accessing her emotionally, trying to deal with this sort of thing, then sure that can work, right? But as like a plot,
Yeah.
it's tough to go. This is a lot, right? And it just kind of unravels over time.
And like the climax of that story is that the husband in space gets caught dying in a time loop. Like the ship keeps crashing in a time loop over and over again, and then she breaks up with the dead man because she's pregnant. That's literally the end of the story. A lot of these kind of veer off at the ending.
This one does it the most.
Yeah.
I think.
This one and the teacher one where they all jump into the kid's mouth.
Did you listen to the one where the two people are fighting for
That's
the aliens?
Blood.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of a poverty story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they're like getting money to fight in front of the aliens.
Right.
And that one was also weird. I didn't like that one.
Yeah, because the aliens are these like cultural tourists.
Mm-hmm. So this guy and this gal just beat each other up in front of the aliens. And then I don't remember what happened at the end because I kind of zoned out.
So what's interesting about these stories, as you guys are explaining to them, I do like to read anthologies of certain types of stories. And one of my favorite, like, series, this is going to get into my weird dark brain, I like the Hottest Blood series. The Hot Blood, Hottest Blood,
Okay.
and Dark Passions and all that. It's horror erotica. So it's like, there's an erotic element to it, but also there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood. And a lot of weird, like, demons and things like that happening, which I'm totally into that. It's sort of like if you took the, I guess, kind of PG-13 rating that Tales from the Crypt sort of has,
Okay.
like, especially the older Tales from the Crypt, which had a very sexual lean to it, and just said, no, we're going to go full R rating on Tales from the Crypt. And that's what these stories are like. And I just think they're fantastic because you're just so confused by everything happening in these stories. But those are in anthologies, so you kind of get all these different energies from it. So, like, one guy is talking about how, like, demons will possess him and that's why he has to have sex. And the other one is her boyfriend was abusive, so that she ends up working at this porn shop and, like, he's devoured by the thing in the spank room.
Like you do.
I don't know what else to... The arcade booth.
Okay,
There.
yeah.
You have to use proper terminology. I think Mary is so messed up right now.
I'm really tired. It's fine. It's fine! The thing about these is, even though there is, I think, a sex scene or a sex reference in almost every story, I would not call them erotica in any capacity.
No, like in Moon Kids, it's so awkward.
They're all super awkward, like, sex scenes. And the ones that are full sex scenes. Like in the first one, the Alien Virus Love Disaster, like, this random guy that used to work at the factory that just sits around in their neighborhood in a car, like, randomly has sex with the main character, and that's it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Because they have, like, these bumps all over their skin. It's like, he caresses her welts.
The bumps are. I think the inference is in that story that they get infected from the explosion in the factory.
Yeah.
By aliens. So they're like the
there's some,
aliens
like,
are gonna,
growing
like,
inside
spawn
them.
out of the little pustules.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum.
And yeah, the sex scene in Moon Kids is really awkward too. But, like, more awkward, less than the, like, he's caressing my alien growths, and more like these two people, like, are having sex, but then, like, it gets kind of like there's a turn off. It's like that kind of awkward, like teenagers having sex, kind of a thing.
Teenagers who are struggling with their bodies.
Yes, it's more like that kind of awkward.
Struggling with the new gravity, and then in Blood, one of the things with the aliens is that they can, like, they're disembodied, and so they're gonna share eventually the ability to be disembodied. And the point of view character, she, like, really likes that because she hates her body.
It's also a lot of body. Don't like my body stuff in these. They are all fairly one note. Like, the same things happen in a lot of the stories in this collection.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
Well,
I mean,
again,
in that sense, I mean, we're probably getting a piece of Abbey Mei Otis in these stories.
Yeah.
Like, maybe she's got issues with her own body.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe she teaches in an impoverished area.
Apparently, yeah.
She does teach in a college.
Oh,
in,
yeah.
like, I think it's at Ohio. So, yeah, it's Ohio.
Do you want to talk about Sweetheart?
Sweetheart. I liked Sweetheart. So, Sweetheart is the shortest one. I'm a level with y'all. I don't like short fiction. I don't like short fiction because I feel like a lot of short fiction sets a lot of stuff up and then there's no payoff.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the case with a few of these. But Sweetheart was just 3 characters. None of them really have names. I think the little boy has a name. I can't remember what it is.
Paxton.
And it's from the mom's point of view. And her son is like 6. I think he's like 6.
Something like that, yeah.
And he's like, has a little crush on the girl next door. The little girl next door just happens to be an alien. And so it's like this cute little, he likes the girl next door and he brings her ice cream and then it turns out that the aliens get deported next door. And so it was kind of a social commentary, but it's told in this very concise way of like, it gets the point across. Like, there's not all this weird random shit that happens at the end where like someone's head falls off and rolls into a dumpster for no reason. Like, it was just very short and very concise and it got its message across. But also, like, the character that was, like, narrating it had, like, this bitterness to her that's, like, well, I don't want to be her. Because she's like, oh, he'll get over it. He'll get a new sweetheart. He'll find a regular girl. Kind of, like, a feeling to it. Because she's a bigot. So, I don't know. It was, I liked it the most. It was the most concise. It was the most, like, told a complete thought.
I can see where you're coming from. When I read it, and I think it's because it was so short, like, these characters actually don't have any agency. Like, they don't make any choices.
Yeah.
Everything happens to them.
Because they're children?
Well, the little boy has agency.
I guess. But I mean, like, he's not making any choices as to, like, what happens in the plot. It's like a setup. Like, okay, like, this is the beginning. He's got a crush on the girl next door and she's an alien. And then she gets deported and seen.
Yeah.
Right?
But I would argue most of these characters don't have agency. Like, Teacher, again, is the other short story, but there ain't no agency happening in that. Just stuff just happens to her. The entire story is just stuff happening to her.
That's true.
And it's in this weird kind of chaotic, like, it does feel like a bad dream. Like, it's framed like a nightmare where stuff just keeps happening and you don't know what to do about it. And because it's the principal yells at her because she's not doing a good enough job teaching. And then the kids, one of them's got a hole in his mouth because his teeth are rotting. And then she's pregnant, so she jumps off the table. And then there's zombies, and then they all escape. And, like, stuff just keeps happening. That, in audiobook terms, was only 12 minutes long. It's not a long story. And the entire story is her just kind of encountering these things happening to her one after the other, and that's the end of the story. So,
Until they're swallowed.
Until they're swallowed. Literally swallowed. And the kids have to tell her to jump in his mouth for safe. Can't figure that out on her own. Jeez.
She's not a very good teacher.
She's not.
Yeah, it sounds like a little reckless.
Things like this.
That's not to say none of them have agency. I think there are characters in these that do. The one that we haven't really talked about is that if you could be god of anything, that's the one with the sex robot.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I kind of liked that one. So, there's like 3 kids. One of them's I think they're like tweens.
Yeah, they're
12,
like 10 or 12.
10 or 12. Yeah. And a robot falls from the gods above, the rich people. And it's a sex robot, but it's a dumped sex robot. Like, they took its chips out and they just dumped it. It's just the skeleton of one, basically. And she doesn't like it. And all the boys that she hangs out with are like, oh, we're going to make it our queen. And she smashes the shit out of it. And that was very cathartic.
Well, that one, it was interesting because the boys didn't even think of it as a sex robot.
No. They're so used to it.
Yeah. They were just like, oh, it was almost like it was a big doll, like a big toy, right? And so I think that's where her brothers come and were like, you guys know this is a sex doll, right?
Yeah. Well, and, like, one of them is like, is this worth anything? Nah, they fall out of the sky all the time. Like, it's not, they live, like, basically in the trash heap. And so, I kind of liked that one. I'd say that was a...
Oh, yeah, she smashed it when she accidentally... No, her brothers accidentally activated it.
Yeah, they turn it on.
Yeah.
And it creeps her out, so she smashes the shit out of it.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Turn it on?
Yeah.
It's funny. Okay, I'm trying too hard right now. I didn't read the story. I'm just here for commentary.
No, yeah, I thought the same thing. That's probably true. But yeah, these are characters who are, struggling to do anything in a world that's kind of forgotten them.
Yeah, and I think that is a theme I think you see in all these. It's all these kind of characters who are just kind of dealing with the world they're in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is the sci-fi element to a lot of these too. It's the It's not necessarily like sci-fi in terms of space and robots. There's a couple of them that are like that, but the sci-fi element's more like, this is a world that isn't yours, and this is how people have to deal with it. And that's like the running theme is, even if it's not like space, it's just like otherworldly.
Yes.
Which I guess is also kind of reminding me of Twilight Zone, because it reminded me a lot of Twilight Zone, because Twilight Zone isn't always space aliens. Sometimes it's the devil. Sometimes it's just a weird thing happening. And sometimes you're just stuck in a time loop. Sometimes you're actually a mannequin. Like,
You're actually a mannequin.
it's not always... Sometimes there is that more of an element of magic. Sometimes there is more of an element of, like, that dreamlike state. It's just, you are encountering a weird thing. And it's almost like the reader is that person in the episode of Twilight Zone who wakes up and they're the same, but everyone else is different. And then the characters are kind of just the world around you. That's almost how it kind of felt. And of course, I was listening, not reading. So
no, that's a good explanation of it. Is that some of these stories, it's more about the setting than about the actual like arc for the character.
100%.
So the characters are really just a way to move about the world.
To share the world building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is why there's not a lot of like character arcs or resolutions either.
That was the case with If You Lived Here, You'd Be Evicted by Now.
I remember that one. Explain that one to me, please.
So, for whatever reason, you have to kill your mother to keep yourself from getting evicted. So, like, just, like, for whatever, like, property tax reasons or something, you have to kill your mother, right? And so, like, the story starts with the Erasmus family, and it's got, like, 5 kids in it, and they all, like, yeah, we gotta kill our mom, right?
Oh, yeah, sure, it's fine.
So then an adjuster comes to see, like, okay, I'm gonna, like, claim your house now, and they're like, actually, we killed our mom, so you can't. And he's like, oh, shoot, I've got a quota, though.
I don't remember any of this. Maybe I didn't read this one.
Right. So then he goes home. So at first we start with them, but now we're following him to his home, right? And so then he comes home and he's like, oh, we gotta like, we're gonna struggle here because I'm not making quota. And so then he finds out that somebody knows somebody else who it turns out he could kill his wife and like do some sort of ritual where it seems like he's killing his mother.
What?
Yeah. So I think the story was inspired by the notion that in our world, people are able to live the way they do because someone else kills strangers for them. And it's like flipping that on their head where you have to live the way you do by killing somebody you know.
This is such a weird story. It's so dark. I don't like that one. That's so weird.
It's. I mean, if you think too much about the premise, then yeah, it really breaks down. And also, it's really about the premise rather than the arc for the characters.
Right.
But it's sort of like, well, let's think about this idea of like, we live in our society, we live comfortably because people are going off to other shores and shooting strangers, right? And so...
Well, or evicting some other poor family so that you can live
or
in
not
that
evicting,
apartment.
or they're in a sweatshop overseas building your iPhone.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of injustices that allow us to live our comfortable
Which
lives.
kind of comes in the moon one, too. All the people on the moon are building your iPhone.
Yeah.
And they don't get to be artists.
Inventing your iPhone.
And they have to ship their children off at 16. That's a thing in the moon.
Yeah.
You can only keep your kids till you're 16. And they have to pass a test or they get abandoned to Earth.
So you can tell, like, there's some thought behind setting these stories up, even if the experience of reading them isn't as pleasant as if you were reading, like, a story with an arc.
She'd be better if, like, she just picked one and made it into a novel or even a novella. And just said, okay, this is the one I'm working on, and put that out as a novella, as something that's of a reasonable size, and fleshed it out a little more. And then did that, like, repeatedly.
Which one do you think she should do that for in this?
I don't know. That's just the thing is, like, most of these I don't really think would work if you pushed them much further. Maybe Moon Kids. That's one where I think you could world build it, and that was one of the ones with a more solid, like, main character.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name. It's Colleen, I think, right? Because all the other Moon Kids have weird techie names, but she's got, like, a person name.
She's got a person
Well, like,
name?
one of them is named Ibiza, one of them is named Tesla, one of them, like, they're all, like, weird hipster names, and I think her name is...
Trespass.
Trespass.
Colleen. Yeah,
Colleen.
her name's Colleen.
And she's the one that chooses to basically fail so she can go to Earth. So, like, that's one of the few ones where, like, it felt like these characters, like, at least her, she had a little bit, not necessarily an arc, but more of, like, a character. She wasn't just a stand-in for the world.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, agency. You were saying before that these characters, that she seems like she kind of, like, took some control and said, okay, I'm going to purposely screw this up so that I don't have to do the thing that I don't want to do.
So as much as I like that story, I think that she's setting herself up to expand the sex bot story.
Is she?
Because she's got that other story at the end, the Mega Thrill one, where we get, like, the brothers are the sort of de facto guardians of their sister because their mother's not taking care of them, and then you find out why. It's because she's addicted to virtual reality.
I didn't finish that one.
Yeah, she's like stuck in a VR sim, and then you get to follow her in the VR sim. It's confusing. I had to read it twice. The VR sim is her family, but like they're better. So it's like a better version of her family.
Yeah, you could make that make that a longer.
So you could. I mean, so I feel like the author is sort of like drawing from this world enough that she could keep going back to it and expand it more.
So you're saying the ones in the 1 a.m., 2 a.m. are the same family that's in If You Could Be God of Anything? So I think it's also the same family that's in Ultimate Housekeeping Mega Thrill 4.
Yeah.
I think those all three then are maybe the same.
Are they all the same?
I didn't see them as separate stories. Maybe there was some sort of goof in the ebook.
It might also be the way that the audiobook breaks it up. It might have been one story and they just broke it up by time length. That's like a chapter. It could also be the case. Could also be the case. Because Ultimate Housekeeping, she like comes home to the kids and they're like being crazy, right? Mm-hmm. And then she like goes into the virtual reality and the kids are kind of left on their own.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I looked closely at the previous publications and I didn't see that there. So it probably is the case that the audiobook.
Yeah, it might be the audiobook.
I think it's the audiobook because if you look, the longest one on here for the audiobook is 47 minutes.
And that one cuts between an hour.
Yeah. And that one's like a 30-minute.
So I might have listened to it as 2 and you read it as 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then he's also saying that ties into the If You Could Be God Anything where she smashes the sex robot. Mm-hmm. Her brothers are taking care of her because her mom's in virtual reality. So, yeah, that could also be an expanded world.
Are they all the same world?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure. Well, I guess
Yes, he's a no. I like this.
The one with the cougar that ate the girl, there's a reference to, like, you know, the husband go into space and it was like, oh, he's on a shuttle. Yeah. Right? That seemed like a different setting.
Yeah.
But that could be referencing Moon Kids because he's going to go on the shuttle.
Is this like the fan theory where Indiana Jones is in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, God. Or where all the Pixar movies are the same universe?
Yeah. Or Joss Whedon movies?
Maybe. If you want to stretch it that
far,
sure,
that means
Jen.
Cabin in the Woods is also in the same setting as Firefly.
Which totally makes sense.
Well, right, because Cabin in the Woods ends with the destruction of the Earth. And how does Firefly begin? Mm-hmm. Oh, the Earth got used up.
Did Joss Whedon also direct one of the Avengers movies?
Yes.
We just totally do.
Two of the Avengers movies.
And then the Snyder Cut or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He finished. Oh, yeah. We derailed. That means it's the end of the podcast.
We went really far without derailing this time.
I know. See? You make us more professional.
I'm pretty focused here.
I know. What's funny about this is, like, really, truly, he was the most professional through this whole thing. And I almost feel like we need to take a picture of him because he's wearing, like, a bow tie and a button-down shirt. And we're, like, basically in pajamas.
Uh-huh.
This is what I sleep in.
Okay. Fair.
I somehow believe that. Like, there's a magic about AE that I truly believe that this is how he wakes out of stasis.
It's too hot to wear pants, so I'm wearing shorts. And I walked out of my room and I said to my girlfriend, "Do I look like a Republican 4-year-old on picture day?" And she said, "Yes, but don't change a thing."
Don't change a thing.
You also look like the most professional member of this podcast, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Professional.
I'm giving you an air of professionality.
Yeah, because you don't have that.
I think that's about what we had to say about this book. And we incredibly appreciate you being on the podcast with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We loved it. We usually recommend things at the end, especially when we don't like a thing. We go, here, read this instead. Do you have anything... You read a lot of short stories, especially for your podcast. Uh-huh. Are there any in particular that you just love or an author that you really love that you would like to promote and recommend?
You know what I'm going to promote? This is not really short stories, but it's Lovecraft Country.
Oh, I've heard good things.
Yeah, so they have it on HBO as a show, and I haven't seen it, but I hear it's really good. But the book itself, it's sort of like a collection of stories because it's the same. It's like an arc. There is an arc, but it's broken up by point of view, and so each character has their own arc as well.
Okay, so it's like Love Actually, but with Cthulhu.
I haven't seen Love Actually.
But neither has Jen.
Is it in sequence?
Look, Love Actually is one of those movies. It's like the most famous example where there's like 10, 20 different characters who are all experiencing their own little version of what's going on in their life, and then at the end they all show up at a party together.
Oh no, it's not like that because it's in sequence. So like, there's one thing that happens, and then that ends, and then you get another person's point of view. Yeah, and so it's sort of like it's because Lovecraft, in retrospect, had some issues with race, and so it really
it's not shocking because of Lovecraft.
So this really like leans into like not correcting that, but it's almost, some people have said like it almost has nothing to do with Lovecraft, but it's kind of like horror, but then there's this very strong element of race in it. Most of the characters are black.
Is it kind of almost like a retelling of just that cosmic horror genre?
No.
He's like, no.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like horror. There's like the cosmic horror, but then there's this sort of like horror of like racial injustice.
Oh, okay. It kind of connects the two themes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, so I recommend that by Matt Ruff.
Okay.
Read the book and then watch the show. That's the order I like to do it in.
I do the opposite. I have a whole thing about it. I'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Or let's stop recording so she can tell me.
All right, and we're gonna recommend AE's podcast.
Oh,
because it's a lot of fun, and once again, I don't like short stories, but they're much more fun to listen to with sound effects.
Yeah.
So, and different voices, and it's actually quite fun. I really like, my favorite one is, I don't remember what it's called. They go to like the magical food trucks.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, it's by.
I don't remember it.
It's episode 2. It's not even the whole episode. The first 2 episodes are, or it's not the whole story. The first 2 episodes are just clips. Yeah.
But that one was.
They were like I was like testing the water, and I was like, let me do the whole story now.
So magical food trucks. Listen to that one. It's my favorite.
Yeah. What was it?
Food trucks.
I could probably look and see what it's called. Hold on.
And you should totally join on Patreon because he has a Patreon.
I do have a Patreon.
And I happen to know one of his fans on Patreon. I'm that fan.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm that fan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, fans get access to scripts and community polls, and also if you are what's it called?
Patron.
Certain level of patron, you get like personal readings.
Oh.
Which I think Jen is due for one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you get to pick what I get to read for you, and you alone.
There you go.
Ooh.
Cool.
That's sounding back to our alien virus love disaster.
The second episode is called Taste the Singularity at the Food Truck Circus by Jeremiah Tolbert. That one's my favorite.
Yeah.
So listen to that one. And I think that's all we have for you. I'm very tired. Let's go night-night.
All right.
Thank you so much, AE. Goodbye.
Waving.
Yes, we're waving. I know.
We're waving. Bye.
You can see us.
Yes, you can see us. We wave. It happens. We're so freaking weird.
Oh, see, this is why we need to be done. All right. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for cracking another case with Mary and Jen. To learn more about Casing the Cover, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Casing the Cover. To contact us or suggest a book, email casingthecoverpod@gmail.com. New episodes of Casing the Cover released the second and fourth Tuesday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.